Hey guys, how we doing today? Just for my daily walk out in my graveyard here. So, under the shadow of the displacement of the Palestinian people and the destruction of Gaza, we have our own clearing of encampments happening here in Toronto. The Lamport Stadium, tent city, yesterday came under siege by Toronto City Police. Now, the situation is slightly different because I do think that the city is attempting to clear these encampments for health and safety reasons, right? We are seeing the city of Toronto and John Tory coming out and saying, like, we are going to house these people. They have alternative housing methods. Of course, what they say to the people they are displacing from these encampments is you have to throw everything you own away. So if you have any furniture, if you have a mattress, if you have more than 2 bags worth of clothing, right? You have to throw all of that away, and we're gonna put you into what looks to me to be temporary housing, right? And of course, this begs the question, what happens to these people after that housing ceases to be temporary and you've forced them to throw away their tent? You force them to get rid of all of their, their life's collection of things. But the question that really should be asked during all of this is, what are these people being homeless for in the first place, right? That's the true question that I'd like to ask and talk about today. Because, like, John Tory is like the mayonnaise of politicians, right? Like, he's never going to meaningfully confront capital. He's never meaningfully going to do anything to upset the capitalists, even though there is like a fairly obvious solution to this problem, right? Oh, you have a person who's going to be homeless in your society? Well, we have all of these empty apartments and empty condos, right? 1 + 1 = 2. It's really straightforward and easy. We just don't want to do it, right? And we don't want to do it because we have a mayor like John Tory, who's the mayonnaise of politicians, who is never going to meaningfully confront capital, which is exactly what we need to do to avert these sorts of situations, right? We need to take a look at the capitalist class and say to them, hey, you don't just get to hoard our housing and just sit on it so that you can speculate on a market that you're creating in order to jack up prices, in order to ensure that when the economy collapses, after you guarantee and ensure it's going to collapse, you actually have land, which is 100% what is happening, right? Like, for goodness sakes, the largest farmer in the world now is Bill Gates, right? Bill Gates, well-known agriculturalist, right, is now the world's largest farmer, and it's because he's buying up all the farmland. Because the billionaires are aware that the system that they are operating in is destined to collapse. They know it's going to collapse. And so when it collapses, they don't want to be sitting on worthless dollars that are not worth anything anymore. They want to be sitting on goods. They want to be sitting on assets. They want to be sitting on land. And so what they've done is they've come into our cities and our communities, right? And they've bought up skyscrapers. They've bought up condos. They've bought up houses. They've bought up buildings, right? And they're sitting on them and they're empty. We know that they're empty, right? And it's taking the city, like, it's going to take the city an entire decade to put 2 and 2 together and actually admit that this is the case. And then it's going to take them another decade to actually do anything about it, because nobody's actually pointing at them and saying, do this, right? And so what are they doing instead, right? Well, when the system of capital inevitably creates the homeless that it creates, which is an inevitability, it's built into the system of capital, right? The capitalists want people to be homeless. Homeless people are beneficial to capitalists because homeless people drive wages down and scare the shit out of the workers, right? Because it's explicitly the capitalists saying to the working class, this could be you. We could do this to you as well. Every homeless people you see is a threat to your survival, right? And the capitalists want it and they benefit from it. And so when these homeless people who have been evicted from their house over their homes over this COVID period, when these homeless people find themselves in this situation, they're finding groups to go in solidarity with, right? They're creating tent cities. They're managing to get their hands on a tent and they're putting it in a location, and now they're being told that even that is unacceptable. Why? Oh, because it breaks the law, right? Because capitalism and capitalists have made, not only have they made homelessness inevitable, they've made homelessness illegal. So it's this perpetual cycle that they've built into the system. If you're one of these people that dart out of these videos around this time, please be sure to leave a like, share, and subscribe. I only need 7 more subscribers to get to 500, which is a big threshold for me. So please, please, please be sure, leave a like, leave a share, leave a subscribe. Tell people I exist. I'm the communist on your feed. I know you don't have a communist on your feed. I could be that guy. And so the capitalists create homelessness and then make homelessness illegal, right? And then don't do anything to actually alleviate it because they're benefiting from the realities of homelessness in the society, right? It benefits a capitalist to keep people homeless. And this is something like we have to start asking ourselves very clearly, why are we tolerating this system at all, right? Imagine you lived in a household and you were told that one person in the household was going to live and sleep in the backyard all the time, right? All the time. No, they don't get a tent. No, they don't get access to food or anything like this. And that's going to be based on whoever they consider to be the least productive, right? Whoever they consider to be the least productive is going to sleep in the backyard. Well, you would think your family is psychotic, right? You would think that the people who are maintaining and making those decisions are psychotic. And if the city found out that that was an arrangement that was happening in a family, right? They would go in and they would remove those children, right? They would say, and they would arrest those parents. They would charge them with abuse, right? This would be a big whole hoopla of a thing. It would make international headlines, for God's sakes. Like, people would talk about it. But if it's built into the capitalist system, if it's capitalists that are doing it with the help of the politicians that they bribe, right? Well, that's completely fine. Those people, those homeless people, they just need to get a better job. They just need to pull themselves up by their bootstraps, right? It's up to them. If they didn't want to be homeless, they should have got a better skill, right? That kind of nonsense alt-right rhetoric that has lost all credibility throughout this pandemic. And yet we're supposed to take it seriously. We're supposed to look at these children who never grew up, these skyscraper children who literally have never worked a day in their life and have no idea what they're talking about. We're supposed to look at these people and think that they have any credibility at all, instead of the reality that they're detached sociopaths who are being bribed by billionaires in order to propagandize the populace into believing that homelessness isn't an affliction done by the society against the people, which is exactly what it is. Homelessness is an inevitability in capitalism. Capitalism creates homelessness. And then we turn around, once those homeless come together in camps, right? And we continue to afflict them. We punish them. We set the police against them. We do everything we can to belittle, denigrate, insult, shuffle them away so that we don't need to look at them, right? And we can cite like health concerns all we want. We can cite safety concerns all we want. But the reality and the truth of it is that we're doing this to the homeless because we don't want to look at them. We don't want to see the actual impact and the actual effect that capitalism has on our society. We don't want to see it. And what's happening in those encampments, flows into exactly what I've been talking about the state of the Palestinians, which is that's how the capitalists are going to deal with us. Look at what they're doing now. And maybe you could say like, oh, John, it's a little bit different. They're being nicer. They're setting up temporary housing for these people after they throw away all their stuff. They get temporary housing, at least, yeah, right, for now, right, in the middle of this pandemic, right, in order to, momentarily alleviate any kind of public outcry or any of this kind of stuff. But we all know that housing is temporary. We all know those people go back out onto the street, right? Only this time you've stolen their tents from them, right? We all know what the game is. Like, we understand how this works, right? You take homeless people, you put them in temporary housing, you take their tent away, you take their goods away, right? So that they have less than they started with. And then eventually you just reclaim the housing that you put them in and toss them back out, right? That's what they're gonna do. And that's what the system is set up to do. Because we live in a system that's for-profit based. We as humans are commodities. We're not people. Like, we're not actually individuals. We're not actually, people with a soul or a conscious or a moral center or anything like this. We are workers, period. And that is how we are defined. That's how the capitalists view us. That's what they want us to be. They're not interested in our hopes, our dreams, our thoughts, our intuitions, any of that. They're not interested in any of that. They're literally just interested in us turning this winch, and that is it. And as long as we turn that winch silently, they're happy, right? And if we start to grumble about how we have to turn this winch, they'll just throw us out onto the street and then have John Tory send his police thugs to clear out the encampments that we make because they're unsightly, right? That's really what it comes down to. This requires a structural change in our society, right? Which is going to require a moral imperative by a political force that is going to have to come out of the populace. We are literally going to have to repent and change the way we look at the world and our citizens. And we are going to have to demand of our political class and of the capitalist class that homelessness is not a thing. Homelessness does not exist. We need to eliminate it. It needs to go away. And every single homeless person that exists in our society is a high crisis failure of the system itself. That if there is a single homeless person walking around who is unable to find permanent long-term housing in the society that he lives in, that we as a people need to say, this is a high-level crisis, the highest level crisis in the society that must be addressed forcefully and immediately. And until we as a people get to that point, then milquetoast mayonnaise politicians like John Tory will continue doing the absolute bare minimum to capitulate as much power as possible to the capitalist class while maximizing the discomfort and the difficulty of the class of people who are abandoned by capital. That this is a structural issue, and well-meaning mayonnaise politicians like John Tory are not going to do anything to alleviate it in any meaningful way. Under these circumstances, guys, you are doing wonderfully, right? You are doing absolutely wonderfully. You live in a system that generates homelessness, that generates poverty, that demands that you have to sell yourself to a billionaire class who has dominated the market in a system of wage slavery. And under those circumstances, you're making good decisions for yourself. You're making good decisions for the people who are around you. You're making good decisions for your household, for your neighborhood, for your community. The capitalists spend billions of dollars to convince you otherwise so that they can denigrate you, lower your wages, and threaten homelessness against you. We shouldn't let them. We shouldn't let them. You are a divine being standing on divine energy. We could use some of it right now. Good luck. We're gonna need it.